Hello, hello. So, my name is Emma Rose, and I am a life coach for millennials. And I wanted to talk to you today about something that I know is a massive deal for a lot of people. It was a huge deal for me personally, and that is, what do you do when you're in a job that you hate? So, I'll just tell you a little bit about my background. I have been a life coach now for just coming up for a year. And before that, I worked in a corporate job in an office environment for nearly a decade. And I hated it. I like the people, all the stuff that people say, but really, I hated it so much. Like, it was destroying my soul. Sounds a bit dramatic, but if you're in this right now, then I know you'll understand how hard it really is. So if you are there right now, then keep watching, because this video is going to help you to take steps to leave that soul-destroying job and find something that you really, really love. So the first thing that I think stops people, because a lot of people say, like, if you hate your job so much, then just leave, like, you'll get a new job. And it's not always that easy. It wasn't that easy for me. I was so stuck, and the number one thing that kept me stuck was not knowing what I wanted. Like, I didn't have this dream of what I wanted to be or do. And so staying in that job was like the lesser of two evils, because I was comfortable, I was earning money, and this thing as well, this is really interesting. I had this feeling that the job was like okay enough. Like, it was just good enough to keep me there, but it wasn't enough for me to feel really happy and content and fulfilled. And that is so important. Like, you deserve to feel amazing, and you deserve to have an incredible life, and you are so capable of doing it. Anyway, I didn't know what I wanted, and I kept going around with all these different ideas. Like, I thought I wanted to be a jewelry designer, and then I had this idea to create a delivery service for roast dinners, because that doesn't really exist. And I had another idea to become a psychologist. I was going to go to uni. I honestly had so many ideas, and the people around me, like, when I would say, like, oh, I've got this idea for a business that I'm really excited about, they'd just be like, oh, here we go again, because I always had an idea and I never followed it through. And really, the reason I was coming up with all these ideas is it was out of desperation to be doing something different. And it was out of desperation to leave the job I was in. And I just want to talk about that for a minute, because if you're in this place where you don't know what you want to do, but you're having all these different ideas, I want you to just check in with yourself. Like, is that being driven from a desperate place to leave your job, or is it being driven by your desire and love and passion for that thing? Because that is what you need to be able to make money and have a business from the thing you love. If you don't love something, you're not passionate about it, you're never going to be able to put in the level of commitment and energy required to make it work. So if you're having loads of ideas right now, or you're having an idea, I want you to just check in. Is the idea driven from fear, or is the idea driven from love and passion? And you will instantly know the answer to that. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. It was keeping me stuck, and I was so sure that I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was so sure that I wasn't sure. I was so sure that I had no idea. And when I look back now, I think there were so many signs that I wanted to become a life coach, and also that I wanted to become an entrepreneur, and I wanted to work for myself, because all of the different ideas and all of the things that I thought I might want to do, they were all related in some way to those things. So apart from maybe the roast dinner delivery. Although in some ways, you know, it was entrepreneurial. I wanted to do something different. And a lot of the ideas that I had were around helping people in some way, doing something different, creating a life that was meaningful, being part of something bigger, and working for myself. Like, I knew that I really wanted time and location freedom because I hated being stuck in an office and I hated having restrictions around my time. Like, I knew that I wanted to be able to get up at 7 a.m. and work for 5 hours and be done, or have a lay-in and then work at 10 o'clock in the evening if I got inspired. So I knew that I wanted that. And I knew that I wanted to be able to work from anywhere because it's a dream of mine to be able to travel. So I knew that already. So even though I thought that I didn't have clarity, when I look back now, I think, okay, well, there's some clarity. Like, whatever I was going to do, I wanted time and location freedom. And that meant that I wanted to work for myself. I wanted to create my own business. So step one, clarity. Do you want to work for yourself? Do you want this digital nomad laptop lifestyle, or do you want the security of being employed? Like, that's one thing that you can decide to get more clarity on it. And then the second thing was that even though I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, I felt like I had to know it exactly before I could make any changes. So I kept thinking, like, well, okay, so now I know I want to work for myself, but I still don't know exactly how that's going to look. And I really felt like the missing piece was clarity. And then what I've realized since then is that clarity can be not liking your job. Like, that can be the amount of clarity that you might get when you're working in a job that you hate. Like, maybe that clarity is enough for you to decide that you need to do something different, and you don't need more clarity because the clarity will come once you make a change. So what I did, I didn't leave straight away, and this is an important thing. I went to this evening once, and they were all celebrating, like, just quitting their jobs. Like, people were standing up and being like, I quit my job last week, I don't have a clue what I'm doing, but I quit my job, celebrate. And everyone was clapping, and I was sat there like, whoa, that wouldn't feel good to me. Like, if I quit my job and just didn't have a clue what I was going to do, like, that would not make me feel empowered. So if it would make you feel empowered and it would make you feel happy and excited and inspired, then do it. But I know for me that would just make me feel stressed out and overwhelmed, because I would have this need for income to pay my bills because we live in a real world, and quitting my job for me just wasn't an option. So when I realized that I wanted to train as a life coach, and it took me a long time to realize that, but I started doing some research and I started thinking about my skill set. So if you haven't done this already, you can do like personality testing, which is really good. There's a website called 16personalities.com, and you can fill in this test and it'll give you some idea of like your strengths and the things that you might enjoy. So that's a really good start to figure out what you might be good at and what you might like. So I did loads of work around that, and that I'll talk about in another video. But I realized that I wanted to become a life coach. I found an incredible training provider, and I started my training with them. And what I did is I asked my current employer if I could reduce my hours, but I only reduced them, I think originally it was like 2 hours a week that I reduced it by. But I asked if I could like put my hours into other days. So instead of doing 35 hours over 5 days, I was doing like 32 hours or 33 hours or something in 4 days. So I was doing longer hours each day, but I had a whole day off a week. And many employers are a lot more open to flexible working nowadays. So you should see if your company has a flexible working policy, or even if they don't, it might just be worth having that conversation with your boss. Like, if you're a good employee, then they will want to help you and support you, because otherwise you might just leave and that's not what they want. So you can leverage that and you can make the most of it. So I went down to, I think it was 32 hours a week while I did my training, and the training was 6 months long. It was really great. I got some practice clients, which was incredible. And yeah, it all went from there. But what I wanted to talk to you about today as well is like how to cope with it when you're in a job that you don't like, but you're not quite ready to leave yet. Because I stayed in that job for another, I think it was around a year on reduced hours, and I kept reducing them. By the end, I was only doing 20 hours a week. But when I was there still, I was finding it even harder to be there, because by that point, I actually knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I had started doing it, which was really exciting. So if you can start your thing, your business or your idea or whatever it is, you're training to become something else that feels amazing to you, if you can start doing that while you're in the job that you're in, it might be enough to help you feel like okay enough and content enough to be able to just keep going to that job, because then there's purpose behind that job. Because a lot of the time when we're just in those jobs and we're like not doing anything else and we're sick of them and we hate them and everything's crap, horrible, we're just like, our lives feel really hard. But then it might be that you're able to sustain being in that job for a little bit longer if it means that it's letting you do something else that you love. For example, I couldn't have paid for my life coaching training without that job. So for me, what happened is I went from hating it to being like, oh, okay, actually, I'm really grateful for this now, because now this is letting me do what I really love. And if you can shift your perspective like that and have a reframe, it can make it so much easier to stay there whilst you're training or whilst you're preparing yourself for the life that you really, really want. So that's how I transitioned. And I think that, so I was going to talk to you about how to kind of get on while you're there. And the first thing, I just touched on it briefly, but the first thing is gratitude. So there will be some good things about the job you're in. And even if right now you're thinking like, no, there's not, I hate everything. Like, if you sit down and make a list, which I highly encourage you to do, then you will start to realize that there are some things that you actually do enjoy about the job. And even if actually that's not true, you might not enjoy the job at all, but there will be things that you'll be grateful for the job. So even if that is just the fact that they pay you, like they pay you regularly, you never have to like ask them to pay you, it just happens. And that means you can pay your bills, that means you can have a pet, it means you can drive a car, like whatever that money allows you to do, it's sustaining your life right now. So although it's keeping you somewhere you don't want to be, it's probably also paying for things that you really do want, like going for dinner with your friends or your loved ones, or, you know, buying Christmas presents. Like, it's giving you something. So making a list of gratitude for the job that you're in is a really good one. And one thing that you can be grateful for is the job giving you clarity. So the fact that you don't like that job and you're not enjoying it means that you can say, okay, well, it's not this. And the more not this you have, the closer you are to finding what it really is. So that's a great one as well. Okay, so you can have gratitude. You can also do things that you need to do that will make your working life easier. So obviously this is really dependent on what your job is, what your boss is like, what the environment is like. But I was lucky enough to be able to make my working life more enjoyable while I was there. So I made sure that I always wore clothes that were really, really comfortable. I made my desk really nice, like I had crystals and plants, and I made it my own. And I also would do things like take comfy, like warm, fluffy socks with me. And sometimes a hot water bottle as well, and everyone would laugh at me, but it just made me more comfortable in that environment and in that space. So I'd get in, I'd fill my hot water bottle up, I'd make my tea, I'd have my plants, I'd put on my fluffy socks, and then I'd just get on with my work because I was instantly more comfortable and I enjoyed it more. I also took my time on my lunch breaks, instead of going out for a lunch break with my colleagues and moaning about being there, because that's what happens in offices. Instead of doing that, I spent my lunch hour at my desk. I would go out and have a walk and like get fresh air, which was good, but sometimes I'd sit at my desk with my lunch and I would research like ways that I could start my business, or how I could make it happen quicker, or how I could save money more efficiently so that I could leave sooner. So I made use of the time that I had while I was there. Another thing you can do is emotionally detach yourself, and this is a really, really big one. So I was so emotionally invested in that company. I'd been there for such a long time, like people knew me really well, they'd watched me grow up there. I started working there when I was 19 years old, so it was, yeah, it was like everybody knew me really well, and I knew everyone really well in the business, and I didn't really want to, I didn't really want to be as involved emotionally as I had been prior to that, because there was a time that I thought I was going to have a long career there. So I had made some progress within the company, and I had made a lot of good connections and contacts, and what that resulted in is people having really high expectations on my performance and what I'd be capable and able and want to do. So I was often asked to do extra things like volunteering and, like extracurricular jobs, essentially, because I had always been so enthusiastic in the past. And so I had to transition and create this new version of myself while I was there. And that was hard for some people to understand, but they just had to, because that was the choice I was making. So I stopped volunteering as much, like I stopped putting myself out. And what I had to get to the place of doing was by saying, well, actually, I'm going to do this job to the ability that I need to do it to do a good job. I'm managing nothing more. So that can be hard, especially if you're someone who wants to do a really good job. Like, you're obviously an ambitious person. You obviously, you want to be seen as someone who's reliable and competent and capable. And that was how I was. But actually, I needed to put my energy into me and not that company anymore. So I did the bare minimum of work that I could do to still do my job well and to still be at a level of competency, but without doing anything extra. And I highly suggest it, because it gave me so much more mental energy and focus to be able to put into what I really wanted, which was my business. Yeah, so they are my main tips. Oh, actually, bonus tip, I have one more, and this is a great, great one, is stop telling the story. So I would tell this story to anybody who would listen about how much I hated my job. I would like moan about the way that it was being run. I would moan about decisions that had been made. I would moan about how boring it was and how hard it was for me to be there and how much I hated it and how much I didn't respect our senior leadership team. All of this stuff, it was super emotional for me. And anybody who would listen, like friends, family, colleagues, my partner, like anyone, I would just be like launch into this story about it, about how much I hated it and how I just had to get out. And it was one day I posted in this Facebook group about, what should I do? I hate my job. I can't be there anymore. Like, this is just so hard for me and I just need to get out. And this woman replied to my comment in the group and with like some kind words and some support, and then launched into her own story, her own version of mine about her job and how much she hated it. And you know, she was super kind, like she was letting me know that I wasn't alone. And then as I finished reading her comment, I felt like I literally felt the story bubble up through my body, up through my throat, and be about to come out through my fingers so I could type back. And I was about to respond to her and be like, oh my goodness, yes, I totally agree. And this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and jump immediately straight back into my story. But for some reason that day I felt it like bubble up, and I felt the pattern that I was in of like every time someone talked about work to me, my mind would just feed me the story that I was meant to tell. It was like almost as if there was a cue, like, oh, if you hear the words job, work, if someone asks you what you do, then this is the story you give. It was like become automatic. And in that moment, I was like, wow, this story is taking over. Like this is not even conscious anymore. And at that point, I decided that I would never again tell that story, and it changed my life. So stop telling the story because it's not getting you anywhere. Leads me on to a second part of this actually. If someone asks you what you do, because I always used to hate people asking me what I did. If I was at a party or like someone you have met would get introduced and they'd be like, so what do you do? You know how it is. And I used to just be like, oh, I work for an insurance company. Like, it's not very interesting. What do you do? And I would just deflect it right back on them because I didn't want to talk about it because I was embarrassed and ashamed of having such a boring job in my eyes. And yeah, I hated that. So if you have that right now, then I have a tip for you. You don't have to do that anymore. Like, you can just decide from today that you're not going to do that anymore. You're not going to put yourself down. Actually, you could answer that question so many different ways rather than like mumbling something and then like deflecting. You instead could say something like, right now I work for X, but I'm in the process of exploring this idea or this idea, or my creative calling is X, so I'm gonna look into that a little bit more. Because what a better way of answering it, and that will lead into such a better connection with that person and a much more inspiring conversation. And also, you never know who that person is. Like, they might end up being an incredible contact for you based on this new like creative calling that you have. Like, you don't know. So I would just encourage you to answer that question differently. And if you're not sure what you want to do yet, then you can answer it like that. Like, just be honest and say, oh, I'm in a job that I don't enjoy right now, but here's what I'm doing to try and figure out what I want. Because again, like, you don't know where that conversation is going to lead you. That person, like, who knows? It could be a life coach. Like, imagine if someone said that to me, I would be able to just be like, wow, okay, I can help you. Like, you don't know how that person can help you. So just be honest about it, and be honest in a way that you feel good about. So yeah, I hope that helps. It really helped me when I stopped doing those things. So okay, well, that's all I have to share with you today. I will have so many more videos on this topic, I'm sure, because it is a big topic and there's so many different things that could be covered. But I hope this has been useful. I would love to know what your biggest takeaway was from this recording, and whether you have any questions about how you can cope with this. Like, if you've got questions, then just pop them in the comments and I'll try my best to answer those for you. And I would love for you to come over to Instagram and check me out over there, because I love to hang out on Instagram, and you can find the link to that below. And I would also obviously love for you to give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to my channel, because I will be doing many more videos like this in the future. So if you enjoyed this one, subscribe, and I will see you very soon.